Good afternoon, and welcome to the National Press Club, the place where news happens. I'm Lisa Nicole Matthews, 114th President of the National Press Club and Assignment Manager for U.S. Video at the Associated Press. Thank you for joining us today for our virtual Headliners Newsmaker with Girl Scouts Interim CEO, Judith Batty. We are happy to accept your questions today, and I'll ask as many of those questions as time permits. To submit a question, please email headliners@press.org. That's headliners@press.org. The 1947 Girl Scout Handbook explained the Girl Scout motto, "Be prepared," this way. A Girl Scout is ready to help out wherever she is needed. Willingness to serve is not enough. You must know how to do the job well, even in an emergency. Well, 2020 put that motto to the test. COVID-19 closed schools, and with that, the extracurricular activities that kids across the nation depend on and enjoy. Girl Scouts was no exception. Amid all this, in August 2020, at the height of the pandemic, Judith Batty stepped into the job as interim CEO, becoming the first Black woman to serve in Girl Scouting's top role. Ms. Batty grew up in Girl Scouting, starting as a Brownie and continuing through the senior level. As an adult, she also served as a junior troop co-leader. She has served on the national board since 2014. In her professional life, Ms. Batty, an attorney, spent 28 years as a top executive at ExxonMobil. The pandemic forced Batty and the 119-year-old organization to rethink its operations, pivoting to virtual troop meetings and generating dozens of ideas for how the organization's 1.7 million young female leaders could continue to serve. Today, we hope to learn more about how Girl Scouts weathered the pandemic and how their programming will change and evolve in the coming years. And I know you're all concerned about the cookies. Will a worldwide pandemic impact your access to the famous and much coveted Girl Scout Thin Mints? Stay tuned. We are pleased to welcome Ms. Batty to answer that question and more. Ms. Batty, welcome to the National Press Club.
Thank you, Lisa, and I'm very happy to be here today. You know, my job is right now, it's just a great job. We're building girl leaders in business and entrepreneurship and science and technology, in civics and government and more. You know, our motto is we build girls of courage, confidence, and character. So let me start by telling you a little bit about my Girl Scout story. I am the daughter of a Girl Scout. My mother was a Girl Scout growing up in Queens, New York. And when I was at the appropriate Girl Scout age, she became a troop leader, and she was my troop leader. And I was very active, you know, in Girl Scouts growing up. I was a Girl Scout from Brownie to senior, and in my senior years as a senior Girl Scout, I was elected in 1975 to be a girl delegate to our National Council session, which is the Girl Scouts governing session. And I was in the very first class of girl delegates. Before that, only adult volunteers went to National Council sessions and were allowed to vote. That year was the first year they allowed girls to be delegates, and there were 100 of us that year. Right now, we just had National Council session in October, and this year we had over 400 girl delegates. So it's great to see the program grow. But that convention, I actually credit with two things. One, we were voting on a proposal at that convention to admit boys. And I got up and spoke, and I was 16 years old. And for me to get up in front of an auditorium full of all these women, and, you know, to be real, mostly white women, and to speak my mind, I always credit that with giving me the spark and the impetus to become a lawyer. Up until that time, I was going to be a doctor. But, you know, I really enjoyed getting up and speaking and saying my piece. And I think that was the beginning of me beginning to change my career goals. But the other thing about that convention, which was really meaningful for me, was at that convention, we elected Dr. Gloria Scott as our national president. And Dr. Gloria Scott was our first Black national president. So for me, becoming the first Black CEO it's full circle. So, you know, when I left the seniors and I went off to college. And when I came back, when I graduated from law school, actually, I was a troop leader for a while. I had a junior troop in Washington. And I was the leader for a couple of years along with another lawyer. And we had a junior troop in Northeast. And, you know, Girl Scouts was always near and dear, but I got busy and I was traveling. And of course, to be a leader, you need to be there and you need to be present and you need to be consistent. So my job took off and I was traveling and I would donate to Girl Scouts, but I didn't have a lot of time to donate to Girl Scouts. And in 2014, I was approached by a woman who was on the National Board Development Committee looking for board members for the National Board of Girl Scouts. And I was selected and very happy to serve. So I joined the National Board in 2016. And while I was on the board, I was head of a couple of task forces that were looking at various issues strategic issues that Girl Scouts was facing. One was, you mentioned our iconic cookie program. Well, one was looking at our cookie program and making sure that the program was beneficial for Girl Scouts. You know, the whole cookie program grew up kind of organically. And so some of our contracts, some of our processes, because it grew up organically, they weren't, they didn't have Girl Scouts, they could have been better for Girl Scouts. And so part of what the task force I ran did was look at the whole cookie program from baker to the girl selling the cookies and try to make sure that we were had processes in place that benefited both the girl and the councils and also GSUSA. So, I took over as interim CEO in August. Our prior CEO decided to go in a different direction and we didn't have a CEO lined up. So they asked me to be interim and here I am. It was an interesting experience taking over in a pandemic. We are virtual and we have been virtual since I took over. So a lot of the employees at GSUSA, I still have not met face-to-face, but I am on Zoom calls and Microsoft meeting calls with them every day. And, I still have gotten to know them, but it is interesting taking over an organization as the chair, as the lead during the pandemic when you are virtual. It's harder to get a feel for the culture and it's harder to get a feel for how people are doing, but we've managed. So let me tell you a little bit about what Girl Scouts did during COVID. So when COVID first hit in March of last year, I was still on the board and two things happened. GSUSA, they reacted real quick. They pivoted. We put 100% of our programming on virtual. So we set up Girl Scouts at home. So we were keeping girls engaged and connected with each other. The other thing is COVID hit during cookie season last year. And, some of our councils had finished their cookie season, but others were either mid cookie season and there were a few that had not even started. So we had to pivot and set up a national online platform to enable our councils and girls and troops to finish their cookie season. We learned a lot during that pivot. We actually ended up selling, our cookie program last year was very strong and we ended up selling the same number of boxes that we sold pre-COVID. So that was great for the councils and for the girls. But we also learned a lot. which has informed this cookie season, which we are now in. And then at the board level, we set up a strategic COVID committee just to make sure that what we were doing was strategically going to set us up to be stronger coming out of the pandemic. So we were looking at more the whole view, the holistic strategic view of where we wanted to be when the pandemic was over, and making sure that we weren't making decisions in the moment that would not be useful for the long term. So, you know, I guess one of the things I am proud of when I talk about the cookie program is because of all we learned last year and this year's cookie program, and because of where we are with the pandemic, most of our cookie season is, we've enhanced the virtual part of our cookie season. So we have virtual cookie booths. We have direct shipping now for girls so that they don't have to deliver cookies, and you know, direct shipping goes straight from the warehouse to you. We have an app, it's called the Cookie Finder app, Girl Scout Cookie Finder. And consumers can either download the app or they can go to girlscouts.org, and there's a link there to the Cookie Finder, and you put in your zip code and it will direct you to a troop that's selling cookies in your area. And so the troop will get the benefit of the proceeds from your cookies purchase, and you can direct ship. The cookies will be directly shipped to your house. Or if you don't want the cookies directly shipped, you can also donate them to a local organization. And then the newest thing we're trying this year is, because we're trying to do contactless delivery, and because of what's going on in the pandemic, we actually have a collaboration this year with Grubhub. So for all of you out there, especially those of you in the District of Columbia, which is where I am, if you go to your Grubhub app, you can actually order your cookies on Grubhub, and Grubhub will deliver them. So we're trying to open as many avenues as possible for the girls to sell cookies. And in some locations, it's still possible to have booths. So we have socially distant cookie booths following all the CDC guidelines in the councils where it's possible to do so. And before I finish talking, I do want to talk about one of the things that's near and dear to my heart. And that is when I sat in this chair as CEO, as interim CEO, one of the things I talked about, and the board is also passionate about, is Girl Scouts' commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and racial justice. You know, right after George Floyd happened, we instituted an anti-racism pledge, and the pledge is still online. And I would invite everyone to sign it. You know, we want to be an organization that not only is open to all girls, but that welcomes all girls, and that all girls feel like they belong. So we are committed to ensuring that we get there. One of the things we're doing is hiring consultants to look at our processes, look at our programs, look at our hiring practices, look at our boards, to make sure we are using language, training people, and that we do actually become an anti-racist organization. So that's kind of where we are. You know, we're learning a lot. You know, going forward, I'm sure we will continue to make our programs more relevant. I'm sure virtual programming will become part of our offering all the time. So, you know, hybrid, partly in person, partly online. We've had some great virtual events for the girls that, you know, that anybody can participate in since it's virtual. So you're no longer relegated to whatever's going on in your community. You can participate in some real interesting programming, you know, no matter where you are. And in fact, some of our programs have attracted girls from outside of the country, from Europe and Africa. So it's been an interesting ride, but I am really passionate about creating girls of confidence, character, and happy to answer your questions.
Awesome. I have so many questions. You gave me so much information in your remarks. I'm very curious to hear what you had to say as a 16-year-old about boys, but we can get to that a little bit later.
Okay.
Let's talk about the cookie. Is that the I love the idea of the cookie finder. I had no idea there was a cookie finder. I just might need to download that app. But I'm curious about the Cookie Fundraiser and how does that grow or empower a new generation of girls? Do you think that lends itself to modern Girl Scouting, the selling of the cookies?
Right. So the beauty of our cookie program is it helps girls with financial literacy and also entrepreneurship. I mean, they're running their own business. They sell, they keep track of inventory, they have to do supply chain, i.e. delivery, especially now with the Grubhub membership and the Grubhub participation right now that's going on. The way our participation in Grubhub works is the girls set up a restaurant, right? It's a quasi restaurant. So, you know, they'll be at a set location. They have to take the orders. They have to make sure they have the inventory to fulfill the orders. They have to, you know, deal with accounting for the money. They have to close up at night, make sure the books balance. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned that. One of the, you know, we have badges, and one of the things that we're doing right now is actually updating our cookie badges so that they are a little more current. And also we're updating them so every year the girls learn something different. So the badge she gets when she's 5 is different than the one she gets when she's 6, and she's building on the skills. And there is a badge for every year in Girl Scouting related to the cookie program.
That's really interesting. There's so many other things I want to ask you too about.
Well, the other thing, let me do one more quick thing about the cookie program. The other thing is, you know, when the girls take in the money, they decide what to do with the money. So that's the other part of this is the troops decide how they're going to spend their money. And some of them spend it on trips, some of them spend it on service projects, but it's, you know, it's also that, how do you save for something? How do you, you know, what do you want to spend it all in one place? So yeah, there's a lot of skills that the girls learn.
So when I let a lot of friends know on my social media portals that I was going to be interviewing you, okay. Many of them came back and said, well, can you please ask her about parents who take over the Girl Scouts selling of the cookies and how unfair that is? And what do you do to kind of calm that action down? Because it becomes more of a competition between parents than the girls actually learning anything about selling the cookies.
So we encourage all girls to sell cookies. The one thing that the virtual programming has done this year is when girls sell online, the virtual, they actually do a video that explains to their customer why they're selling the cookies and what they're going to use the money for and what their interest is. So you know, it's a girl program. It's not a parent program. It is a girl program. So we encourage the girls to do it all.
So if you were recruiting a girl into Girl Scouts now, what would you tell her is like one of the best things about the organization as it is in our pandemic era?
So I think the best thing about Girl Scouts for girls is that it is girl-led. Girls learn how to use their voice. They learn confidence. They learn how to be prepared. They learn how to plan. They learn how to set goals. But the biggest thing for me is the confidence. You know, when I was 16 and I had to get up and speak in front of, I didn't have to get up, I wanted to get up and speak in front of all these people, it was because in Girl Scouting, I knew I could. And I knew that it would be looked upon favorably, and I was encouraged to do that. And to me, that's the best thing about Girl Scouts. The girls who finish the program are strong, confident women.
So that takes me back then to, what did you have to say about boys when you were 16 years old? Because, I mean, we're going to talk about the Boy Scouts and the relationship between Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts now, and our changing world. But what did you say about boys when you stood up at age 16? And what do you say about boys now in terms of admittance to the Girl Scouts, if at all?
So my answer at 16, which was a long time ago, is probably, it is the same as my answer is today. I think there is a place for girl spaces. There's a place where there's a need for girls to be able to grow and learn without, in a place where they feel comfortable and they can develop their confidence and skills without all the social pressures of, you know, I like that boy, I don't like that boy, whatever. And Girl Scouts is a place for that. I mean, it's girl-led, it's girl programming, it's based on research, it's based on science. You know, our programs are for girls. When I was 16, it was around the time when a lot of the universities, single-sex universities were going co-ed. So, you know, it was when Dartmouth started admitting girls, and, you know, whether Holyoke should admit boys. And we were in that mix. Girl Scouts was in that mix. And I got up and said I didn't think that boys should be part of Girl Scouts. I said that we still need girl-only spaces. And I still believe that to this day. We still need girl-only spaces.
So what's been the attrition rate, if anything, from Girl Scouts to Boy Scouts for girls that are like pursuing their Eagle Scout path now? Or do you find that you're losing a lot of members, or?
Okay, so let's unpack that two ways.
Yeah.
So our highest award, Girl Scouts' highest award is the Gold Award. And Gold Award Girl Scouts are absolutely phenomenal women. In order to get your Gold Award, you have to do a project that changes your community. So you have to plan it, you have to execute it, and it has to alter your community. So it has to have lasting effect. Let me give you an example. One Gold Award Girl Scout this past year, she lives in a community, a rural community, but that has ski slopes. And people who were injured on the ski slopes, as well as people who lived in the community, to the extent they had a medical emergency, the closest hospital was, you know, it was like an hour and a half drive away. Her Gold Award project, she built a heliport for the community.
Wow.
Seriously, yeah, you know, 16 years old. She found the money, she got the science, it's a heliport, it's operational, and now people get injured, they can get airlifted to the nearest hospital. Another example, this isn't recent, this is maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, a National Gold Award Girl Scout. She was American, but of Indian descent. And every summer she went back to India to her parents' village. And she spent the summer with her grandmother and some other people. And one summer when she went back, one of her caretakers wasn't there. And the caretaker, as it turned out, had died during the course of the year in childbirth. Her Gold Award project, she built a hospital. That village now in India has a 34-bed maternity hospital that she built, 16. So
pretty significant.
Very significant. It's a little bit different than a Eagle Scout, but so Girl Scouts, our attrition rate, I wouldn't say we have an attrition rate. We are girl-led organization, and we have our highest award, the Gold Award. There are girls who have brothers. There are girls who, where they are located, they might not know about a Girl Scout troop and want to join Boy Scouts. I don't know what their number is as far as girls are concerned. I think they have maybe 100,000 girls, maybe a little more, not much more. But you know, we're a youth serving organization and willing to compete with any other youth serving organization. We think our programs for girls are better than any other youth serving organization, but you know, we compete.
Why do you think more people don't know about the Gold Award?
Yes, so that's a good question. And actually, I'm glad you asked that question, because the board has a committee. The staff, GSUSA has a committee. We are trying to get the word out. I think part of it is it's the same old, sexism story that happens, it's men who run companies. So when men are interviewing, they know about the Eagle Scout because they were Eagle Scouts. And they may or may not have a daughter or, who was a Girl Scout. But the Gold Award is something to be, rewarded. Girls who earn the Gold Award are good workers, they're solid, citizens. And we are trying to get the word out.
That's interesting. I wonder how do you manage our current climate where you have transgender children who choose they want to be in Girl Scouts. How do you manage that?
From day one, our policy has been, if you're a girl, if you think you're a girl, you're welcome in Girl Scouts. So we actually have some transgender troops in various parts of the country. They're welcome.
Thinking about the kind of push and pull between, and I know you said you're willing to go against any other youth organization, but what's your biggest challenge when it comes to what people think about the Girl Scouts versus their thinking about the Boy Scouts? And especially when it comes down around to fundraising time and who's getting the funds from people, who's getting the most attention from people.
Right, and it's the same. It's that same issue again. Unfortunately, people don't value girl education, girl activities, at least as far as philanthropy is concerned. They don't give as much to girl organizations as they have to boy organizations. So Boy Scouts gets a whole lot more money than we do. They always have. We're trying to change that. We think girls are just as important. And time will tell. But it's when you're looking for corporate donations and everyone in the corporate chain has been a Boy Scout, they understand what they're giving to. And when you don't have Girl Scouts in that chain, sometimes it's harder to get that corporate money. Now that boardrooms and corporate C-suites are changing, the makeup of them is changing. We're actually doing a lot better in corporate America than we have in the past as far as philanthropy is concerned. But I go back to, as women are seen as equals, then everything else kind of falls into place. And that's part of why I do what I do, because we're raising those future leaders so that we will be viewed as equals.
So before we started talking, and you and I were talking off camera, and I mentioned that, growing up, I wanted to be a Girl Scout, but we couldn't afford it in my family. Can you talk a little bit about just how much it costs to be a Girl Scout now. And, and I know you said that you have a very low membership rate, but we all know that that cost can grow from there.
Right. So, yeah. So the membership fee is $25, $25 a year. Where it can get expensive is in the programming, because, it's getting the books and getting the badge and getting the uniform and actually just going to events. We have scholarships. All councils have scholarships available. We raise money so that, all girls can participate. And then we have programs that we try to deliver in areas where it's economically depressed, that are not that don't call for a whole lot of cash. The other thing is, frankly, a lot of troops, the way they get around some of the costs is they use their cookie money. I mean, that there are troops where the girls have used their cookie money to buy new uniforms. There are troops where the girls have used their cookie money to do X project or to go on X trip. There are troops where girls have used their cookie money to do a service project. So there are ways of funding Girl Scout activities, but we understand the cost and we try to keep it as low as we possibly can and raise money for scholarships.
Can you talk about some of the initiatives that you might have underway? And this is actually a question from a press club member that just came in. Can you dive a little bit deeper into particular initiatives that are being put into place to better reach out to some girls and troops in underserved areas? What are you guys doing specifically?
So, we're a federated system, and there's GSUSA, and then there are 111 councils, and each council is an independent entity. And some councils have different councils have different programs. But for instance, if you take New York, the troop that's gotten a lot of notoriety lately, or I shouldn't say notoriety, popularity, is Troop 6000. Troop 6000 in New York is girls in homeless shelters in New York. And it's in, I think, all 5 boroughs of New York now. And they do all kinds of activities. And, their cookie money is what pays for that, as well as they get some grants from foundations. I know in other councils, what they'll do in communities where it's economically depressed is, instead of having, a lot of times the issue becomes finding a leader, finding someone to lead the troop. So they'll have staff go in and lead the troop and train a leader so that you have that continuity, but you have troops in that area. There are troops in schools that are run by teachers after school. And then, the virtual world is there. I mean, we have a lot of programming online now. And, that's for a lot of girls that works. I mean, there's still the issue of access to computers and broadband, et cetera. And we're working on that as well, especially with our rural girls. But, we are looking at all avenues to try to make Girl Scouts accessible to everyone.
So I'm going to ask you about something that it's been in the news a little bit. I know my news organization did an investigation on the use of child labor in the production of palm oil. And unfortunately, Girl Scouts came up in that. So it turns out that palm oil is used in Girl Scout cookies. And we've had reports of Girl Scout troops boycotting basically the sale of cookies or opting out and baking their own cookies. To two questions. Do you have a message for those girls that are so concerned about it that they've stopped selling Girl Scout cookies or are baking their own? And then what concrete steps is Girl Scouts taking to kind of rid your supply chain, as it were, of the cookies with palm oil in them?
So, okay, a lot to unpack there too. You know, palm oil came into the cookies when trans fats left, right? Palm oil doesn't have the health effects that trans fats have. We early on joined the Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil, which is the largest organization that tries to ensure that palm oil producers who use ethical practices are in the supply chain, and they encourage those ethical practices. We're a member, our bakers are members. The story that ran in the AP, unfortunately, did name us, but it talked about one farm that had violated, and basically that farm had violated the principles of the Roundtable. You know,
Child labor.
Right. Yeah. We expect the Roundtable to correct that. We're members, as well as our bakers, to make sure that it's corrected. You know, palm oil is a commodity, and so, you know, we do what we can, which is, you know, we participate in the Roundtable. We encourage our bakers to participate in the Roundtable, but it's the U.S. in particular is not a large user of palm oil. Palm oil is mainly used in Asia and in Africa, and so and in Europe. And so part of the issue is what supplies we actually can get into the U.S. and how much the U.S. as a government, as an entity, how much influence we have on the industry, because we're not a big user in comparison to the rest of the world. You know, we do what we can, as does the U.S. government. There are laws that Congress has passed around palm oil as well. But we're a small part of the supply chain. So we depend on the Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil to make sure that what comes into our cookies is produced by ethical producers. And to the extent somebody violates that there are consequences.
Well, can you talk
as far as the girls, we teach girls, you know, to use their voice. And it's, you know, I'm happy that the girls are using the voice, as is everyone else. Part of, though, using your voice is also being educated. So, you know, there are councils who are having seminars and getting girls engaged in learning more about the industry and how it works. But, you know, just as a basic matter, child labor has no place in Girl Scout cookies, none.
When you talked about being a member of the Roundtable, I'm just curious if you can expand on what specifically Girl Scouts is doing to ensure that the palm oil isn't being used in its cookies in the future.
I mean, palm oil will be, I mean, palm oil is in our cookies. It's not going to be replaced until we can find some other oil that is just as good. I mean, palm oil is ubiquitous.
I should say that palm oil that came from that particular location.
Right. So we depend on the Roundtable to do its job, which is to discipline the farmers that violate the policy. You know, the way the Roundtable works is farmers sign up and they agree to abide by certain policies. One of those policies is no child labor, and the Roundtable actually just enhanced its policies around child labor. So we depend on the Roundtable to do its job. Like I said, the AP article talks about a farmer and a farm that had signed the policies but then violated them. The Roundtable does do audits. The Roundtable does have has a disciplinary arm. So we depend on them to make sure that what what farmers sign on to, they actually do.
Okay, so no plans to stop using the palm oil, because apparently that must bring something special to the taste of the cookies.
So, so let's backtrack. We don't bake the cookies. We have contracts with bakers.
Right.
So no, I mean, there's no comparable oil at this point that's mass produced, that's available in mass quantities, let me put it that way, that has the same characteristics as palm oil.
Yeah, at the top, and I'll let you go on palm oil now, because I want to go back to since we're in Black History Month.
Okay.
You talked a little bit about Miss
Dr. Scott.
Yes, Scott. Exactly. And seeing you, I mean, you kind of like followed in her footsteps in a way. And there's been a lot of discussion about the lack of Black people in CEO spaces. Mm-hmm. You came out of retirement, I guess, and left the Girl Scout board to become the interim CEO. So how long do you plan to remain in the post, and what measures are you taking to try and ensure a diverse pool of candidates moving forward?
So I will remain in the seat until we have a permanent CEO. We have begun the search. As I said, I took over in August, and we have our 3-year governance. We had our 3-year governance convention, NCS, this year in October. And we did it virtually. So that is a big deal for us. And the fact that we were doing it virtually was also a big deal for us. And so we didn't really begin in earnest the search until after NCS. So we're now in the search process. I don't know how long it'll take. We hired a search firm. One of the mandates to the search firm was that they do produce a diverse slate, and we're going to hold them to that.
What about Girl Scouts?
So as I said, so we're doing everything we can to make sure our girls are diverse. We have and diverse in every way. It's not only Black, but Latinx and Indigenous girls, Asian girls, diverse rural, city, diverse economics. And we're in the process of hiring a DEI consultant to make sure that to do an audit of all our processes and practice and help us get on a path to becoming an anti-racist organization. I mean, diversity is key for everything, and it is something that the organization as a whole values. We have it within GSUSA. We already have a diversity consultant looking at our programming. So anytime we come out with new programming now, it's gone through a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. So the language, the delivery, the program itself, it's all been through a diversity lens. We have, our programs, like I said, are based on research. We have the Girl Scout Research Institute. Within the Girl Scout Research Institute, we have a DEI researcher, a PhD researcher on staff. We have a DEI person in our HR office. So we're looking at everything. And we're looking at how we're training recruiters when they go out to get girls. So we're looking at it all. We definitely are on the path of becoming an anti-racist organization and an organization that serves all girls.
That's interesting to me. Do you find that you have specific programming that's aimed at areas like, say, Washington, D.C. or Chicago, or places in the South where you have to change up in your approach to get different kinds of girls involved in Girl Scouting?
So what we've found by and large is not so much that we have to change the approach of the program once the girls are in. It's more changing the approach of how we recruit girls, right? And making sure that girls understand that it is for them. And it's not just for the other. So a lot of it is around just recruiting. Once girls are in, they get it.
Okay, let's switch lanes here. How important is it, and realizing that we're in a pandemic and most things are virtual, but how important is it, and this comes from another press club member, Deborah Solomeo, how important is it to have in-person and outdoor activities for the girls? And when do you think you'll be able to resume them? So are you guys going to have summer camp?
Right. So we're looking at that now. It's really important, especially the outdoors. We are looking at summer camp, and at this point, we're hoping that all of our councils will be able to hold summer camp. And in fact, online, we have a camp website, you can go to it. But councils are also making contingency plans, you know, whether you do resident camp, whether you do sleepaway camp, whether you have to go virtual. It's going to be jurisdiction by jurisdiction. You know, we're going to follow the CDC guidelines. We're going to make sure girls are safe. But as soon as, you know, we can get girls outdoors, that's what we're going to try to do. One of the things that we've done, which has been actually successful in a lot of councils, is even like camping. We have virtual camping. So all the girls are at home, but we do a Zoom meeting, and, you know, we read a story together, we have dinner together, they can camp out in their living room or in their backyard, and then they come together in the morning on another Zoom call and have breakfast together. I recently read a story to a group of campers in Alabama because I could do it virtually. So yes, it's important for them to get outside. It's important for that, that personal connection. But until we can do that, we have all these virtual connections that hopefully are satisfying.
Are there any particular virtual activities that are doing better than others? Any favorites that you hear the membership clamoring for to do more of?
You know, some of the one of the outcomes, some of the older girl, it's not so much the actual activity, but with the older girls, you know, we tend to lose girls in middle school and older, and as they get older. With the older girls, the virtual programming has actually been great, and they've stayed for the virtual programming, mainly because with the older girls, one, they don't need their parents to help them get online or whatever, but two, and more importantly, they can connect with girls who have similar interests, but who may be across the country or on the other side of the world. And so it's been a great benefit for the older girls to have all this virtual programming, and they love it. And it's not so much, I think it's more around the camaraderie of who's on the program as opposed to the actual program itself. But yeah.
Interesting. You mentioned that there were girls internationally, globally, that were participating in some Girl Scout events. Do you see or foresee Girl Scouts expanding globally as a result of what we've gone through now with the pandemic?
Well, there's two parts of that. One is we do have Girl Scouts overseas, USA Girl Scouts overseas, mainly on bases overseas, on military bases, but also just some expat troops, you know, in the expat communities. But two, Girl Scouts of the USA is a member of a wider organization called WAGS, the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. And there are some, you know, there's Girl Scouting or Girl Guiding, depending on your country, and most countries in the world. And our virtual programming, we get some Girl Guides also, or Girl Scouts from other countries signing on as well.
That's really cool. All right, So before I ask the final question, let me take a moment to thank the organizers of today's event. Headliners co-team leaders Donna Linewan and Lori Russo. Today's headliner event coordinator, Deanna McCrae James. Our club communications director, Lindsay Underwood. And club executive director, Bill McCarran. And I want to tell our audience about some upcoming headliners. Tomorrow, Friday, February 12th at 11 a.m., National Press Club board member Del Wilbur will moderate a panel of former hostages to discuss how the U.S. government can end the use of hostage taking as a diplomatic tool. And on February 23rd, I will return to the big chair at 2:30 and host Michelle Duster. She is the great granddaughter of crusading journalist Ida B. Wells, to discuss her new biography, Ida B. the Queen, the extraordinary life and legacy of Ida B. Wells. And I have to tell you that that is a really good book, so you should buy it. And we really do hope that everyone who's on today will join us then. So I left plenty of time for our final question because I know that there's going to be much, much to do about this. First of all, real talk.
Real talk.
Real talk. Are they called Samoas or Caramel Delights?
Real talk. So they're called both. We have bakers. We have 2 bakers. And our bakers have traditionally owned the names of cookies. There are 2 names that we traditionally have owned. One is Thin Mints and the other, well, actually it's Thin Mints. And so both bakers make a Thin Mint cookie. But Samoas, the name is owned by the baker that bakes Samoas. And Caramel Delights is made by the other baker. So that's why you have 2 names in the market.
The same cookie.
Similar cookies. They're not quite, if you taste them side by side, they're similar. It's like Thin Mints. If you taste Thin Mints from both of the bakers side by side, they're very similar, but they're not quite the same.
What's the difference between the taste of a Samoa and the taste of a Caramel Delight? What's the
Probably difference? One is sweeter than the other, but you'd have to taste them side by side to decide. The one thing I will say is as I told you earlier, I was on the Cookie Task Force when I was on the board. One of the things that came out of the Cookie Task Force is now Girl Scouts owns the names. And so any new cookie coming out, we will own the name. So you will eventually in the market have cookies with the same name, no matter who they're baked by.
So that takes me to another somewhat of a final question.
Okay.
Will there be a new flavor of a Girl Scout cookie this year or in the coming years?
Oh, of course.
We expect that?
Of course. Well, this year we have Toast Yay. It's only made by one of our bakers, so it's only in certain areas of the country. But Toast Yay is it's based on French toast, and actually they're really good if you can find them. So the Toast Yay is our new cookie this year, and just watch the presses. We will have a new cookie next year as well.
Toast Yay.
Toast Yay.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. Well, I really, really enjoyed our conversation today, Judith, and I want to congratulate you on your new role with the Girl Scouts, or should I say your expanded role, lifetime Girl Scout that you are. And I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for joining us for this discussion. And just remember that there is a cookie app you can get, the Cookie Finder, that you're going to want to download. And you can also work with Grubhub to get your favorite cookies delivered.
Absolutely. Or just go to girlscouts.org to find the Cookie Finder. Okay. Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate this.
Thank you, Judith.
And thank you, everyone.
We enjoyed having you.
Thank you.
A good day.